Greetings, everyone. Well, I wanted to welcome you to the weekly series Built to be Heard. Thank you so much for joining me. I love when people join live as well as anyone listening to the recording. I just wanted to start with something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. And I'm hoping that it is going to also have you think about it. And it may be somewhat controversial. You may or may not agree with me, but I would love to hear your thoughts. And I would encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments of any of these clips that are published or send me a DM because it's something that I've been thinking and journaling a lot about lately. And this is what it is. I think that we are becoming too polished online these days, right? I mean, and that actually could be online and offline. But the bottom line is, I feel that we're becoming too polished, too perfect. And if you recall, we've all heard that done is better than perfect. However, in the world of AI and technology, we can have a presentation created for us perfectly, right? We can have, talk tracks created for us. We can have post videos. We don't even have to be in the video, right? We can have our twin. I haven't done these yet, but we can have our twin in the video. Now, I love AI. I use AI. I use technology. We help other people learn how to use technology and build pipelines. However, the point of using the tools and the tech stack is so that things are easier for you. However, what we don't want is we do not want technology or AI manufacturing a personality for you. It is up to each one of us and our companies to train AI, to let AI know what our personality, what our mission, values, what we believe in, so that AI is not manufacturing that for us, because then we could sound like everyone else. And we want to be able to be established in a category of one, be in those right rooms with the right people, right? Now, the reason why I feel that we are becoming too polished online, things are too perfectly written or, just crystal clear formatted, is because we can become completely you know, unconnected and not really sharing what we believe. And if that's the case, then we can become completely forgettable. And that is not our goal. And if you've listened to me before, you know that I believe that you were built to be heard, right? But people want to know what you're thinking, what makes you think, what makes you tick, why did you make these decisions? Okay. So I want you to think about that. And I use notes. Just to make sure, because when I get into like a certain subject, sometimes I lose track. When I started live streaming 10 years ago, it's been 10 years. I used to use just note cards because, I had a speech class in high school and I still follow that same thing, the same sequencing when I'm when I am doing talks, because I think it's timeless what we learned in high school speech class. But in today's world, with us being surrounded by technology, it's super important that we are conveying the ideas, the points of view, whether they're controversial, whether they're provocative, whatever the case is, it's important because we could lose ourselves in that. And we don't want someone else, whether it's technology or even, a colleague at a company or, a appear at your company, we don't want them representing or misrepresenting your thoughts. We want you to be able to speak maybe into your phone to make sure that your thoughts are clearly communicated, and it is not just something that you're allowing AI or some app to completely, write for you, because it should make things easier for you, not more difficult, not clouded up or anything like that. So AI and the tech stack should not replace your thinking. That's super, super important. And I know that what I'm saying, it may be more toward the unpopular opinion, but I'd love to hear what you have to say, because I'm not here, every week to make sure that everybody's agreeing with me. I just want to speak out certain things that I've learned to hopefully help you, to inspire you to think through some of the things, for you to journal through some of the things so that you can share those ideas with your people, right? Because it would be extremely dull if we all thought the same way and we all wore the same things. Like I think about some of the cartoons, like the Zacks and that one. I was this Dr. Seuss, when they had someone putting stars on everybody, so everybody looked the same, and then they had the same guy coming back taking the stars off. We don't want that. We want everyone, all thought leaders, all company leaders to be, representing their company or their thoughts and be able to be in a category of one. That's super, super important. And, you know, I feel that, if you are courageous enough to speak up and say, I disagree, or, this is potentially, an unpopular opinion, you will help more people that way, right? Because you don't want to be the yes person. You don't want to be the one that just agrees with everything and doesn't, share your opinions, right? Because, I'm really interested in helping people learn how to discern, other people's thoughts, their thoughts. I'm, not interested in, someone that's just going to agree with what I have to say or what I teach and not contribute their thoughts. So for today, I've prepared 3 key takeaways that you can kind of mull over if you wish. Maybe you will talk into a phone or send me a DM or comment, like I said, on any of the clips that are posted. But I did dwindle this down to 3 points, and looking forward to what your insights are on those. So, point number 1 is stop asking what you should post or asking your social media manager, what should your company post. Instead, like if you are the CEO, I would say, what ask yourself, what do you actually believe about that certain subject for those right people that your company serves? What do you actually believe about that? Not what you think they want to hear or not what you think you should say, but what you actually believe, because your best content will come from that. And point number 2, stop trying to sound like an expert. Now, I know that if live streaming is new for you, and I know what I went through as far as, what I had to learn when I was live streaming and doing Facebook lives, and it was scary. And when I go back and look at some of my videos, it's like looking at childhood photos, right? Because I'm like, oh, I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe I did that. But it's perfectly imperfect, which is fine, right? And that's how you should look at it. But don't try to sound like an expert, because you already are an expert. You have your own thoughts, your frameworks, your way of doing things, your way of being, and that is enough for your people. You don't need anyone else. You don't need to sound like anyone else. And don't be afraid to say like this is what failed. Like if you're reporting a use case or you're talking about something that you learned, or maybe teaching a cohort and maybe the thoughts didn't land right, right? Make sure you tell us like what failed and maybe why you decided to do that. Because I remember, years and years ago watching 60 Minutes. And the reason why I enjoyed watching that, and I don't typically watch those shows. I'm not like a news watcher anymore. Uh, Documentaries are sometimes interesting, but the thing that was attractive to me when I would watch 60 Minutes or Dateline back in, years ago, was the fact that we could really get clear on what that person thinked, or how that person ticked. Thinked is not a word, by the way, but we were able to understand, what made that person tick and why they thought that way, and what happened. And when they were doing interviews with like certain thought leaders, or people like that. And nowadays I think it's even more important that you share your specific point of view for those right people in the right room. You will attract more of those right people, and then of course you will repel the ones that maybe you're not for them, right? They're not for you. So that's a good thing. You're actually helping them as well, because then they can be like, yeah, that's not something that I want to pursue, right? Okay, so share the experience as you went through it, so that other people can kind of see themselves in your shoes. Point number 3, give people something to respond to. And, if you're familiar with the language that we use, in our worlds, right? It's not necessarily a call to action. Those are important too. But you need to give your people something to respond to. It's not just you it's not just you lecturing. It's not just you educating. It's you inviting them into a conversation, whether it be in the DMs, in the comments, on the phone. You really want to give them an opportunity, your right people, to say, yes, I've experienced that too. Or no, that I respectfully disagree. This has been my experience. And then that is a true back and forth conversation that is not only going to help them, but will help you, because you can really test and see, how did your thoughts land? Maybe they didn't land the way that you wanted them to, right? Maybe not. So I'm curious. Do you think that we as individuals, and we as, business leaders and company owners and corporate executives, do you think we've become too polished online, and possibly even offline as well? I'd love to know. Love to know what you think. Maybe perhaps you disagree with me. I would just love to know either way. And, I would certainly welcome anyone who is interested in coming on to have a conversation on Built to Be Heard. I'd welcome you to DM or message me. We don't need to become louder or more confusing or sound like everyone else, right? We don't even need to manufacture a controversy, because if we come on and we share our thoughts, that will absolutely happen, you know, as it should, right? Because we are not looking for people just to agree with us. We are not looking to build a fan base. We are looking to make sure that we convey our ideas, and we teach people and we help people to get to where they want to be. So I would just encourage you to have the courage to speak your mind without thinking, should I say that? Should I not say that? Now, absolutely have some talking points, but know that if you clearly speak, what's on your mind and what you learned, and maybe something that you were afraid of sharing before, And that doesn't mean that you would be, going against someone's privacy, because, you can either share use cases with clients that you worked with permission. I would certainly change the names and like those circumstances around, but keep the facts, right? Because that's how you can truly help people. So, you know, be courageous and really speak your mind. Don't speak what you think people want to hear. And remember that you are already an expert. You don't need to try to sound like an expert, because you already are an expert, because you have thoughts in your head that no one else has, right? Remember that. You weren't meant to blend in. You were meant and built to be heard. So please do share your ideas. Let me know. Do you think we've become too polished? How we can just get presentations created for us? That makes things easier, as long as they are your thoughts and they are, your intentions, not someone else manufacturing your personality or, your mission, values, whatever you believe in with your company. That's something that only you and your staff can do. And then, of course, AI and technology can make that easier. So remember, you were meant and built to be heard. I'll see you all next week. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful, successful week. Get out there, share your ideas, share your stories, your lessons learned.